Hello, this is Heaven's Reader Astrology here with your astrological forecast. We have a solar eclipse coming up in the last few degrees of Aries on April 19th or 20th, depending on your time zone. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about what that eclipse signifies in a general sense, and then take it through the zodiac to show how it might manifest for each rising sign. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a Hellenistic astrologer, which means that I might do things a little differently than you may be used to. For example, I tend to use whole sign houses, as you can see here, and rather than using your sun sign to determine horoscopes, I use rising. The main reason for this is that the sun could be literally anywhere in your birth chart, but the rising sign will always be here in the first house. So if you listen for your rising sign, that allows me to then line transits like this up with their placements in your natal chart more accurately. If you would rather listen to your sun sign though, then go right ahead. This is just my suggestion. Now, a solar eclipse is essentially a highly charged new moon. And so in astrology, we tend to ascribe a lot of the same meanings as we do to new moons, just to a greater degree or with more magnitude or emphasis. So these can represent things like beginnings, inceptions, new directions or transformations, new opportunities, doors opening for us, and especially taking place in the sign of Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac. That also emphasizes some of these. Aries is the first sign, so it also can represent beginnings or inceptions. However, Aries can also lend a little bit of its other symbolism to this eclipse as well. For example, Aries can tend to signify competition, combativeness, quick behavior, quick action, sometimes to the point of recklessness or rashness. This can be intensity or aggression. The sign of the ram, that definitely brings that sort of hard-headedness and boldness to situations. Now, Aries is ruled by Mars, which just so happens to be fallen in Cancer right now. And this can also add a little bit of color to how we view this particular eclipse. Now, a fallen Mars in Cancer could bring perhaps significations of emotional volatility, sensitivity, maybe having a chip on your shoulder or some sort of a wounded aspect. This could also indicate issues with boundaries, perhaps, or maybe fighting battles on others' behalf. Also, if you look here, in very close proximity to this eclipse that's happening is Jupiter. And in fact, Jupiter was actually just conjunct the Sun a few days ago. And so Jupiter is still very much creating a stellium here in Aries, a very tight-knit grouping of 3 planets together, and lending its own particular color and flavor to this eclipse. So Jupiter can indicate things like expanse, largesse. Jupiter magnifies. It talks about opportunity. Jupiter is a planet that says yes and. Now, when we combine Jupiter with the Sun, we have 2 of the most authoritative, the largest, the most impressive planets in astrology here conjoined in a nice tight configuration. And so the Sun and Jupiter together, they're both very regal, very kingly, very majestic. They can signify prominence. These 2 together can signify authority, confidence, or exuberance. On the flip side, This could also come off as pride, as arrogance, overconfidence, or overzealousness, perhaps a little bit of egotism. Some ethical or philosophical tunnel vision might be happening. So this is a very interesting combination of traits that we have coming through in this eclipse. So let's see how this looks for each rising sign. So first things first, let's start with Aries rising. Let me go back in time so that Aries is on the ascendant. All right. So with this stellium happening for Aries rising, this is taking place in your first house, which is a very big house for an eclipse like this to be taking place in. The first house in Hellenistic astrology is the house of the self. Out of all of the natal chart, this is the house in Hellenistic astrology that really represents the native, that represents the person you're doing a reading for. Modern astrology tends to look at the entire chart as representing different aspects, psychological, mental, emotional, of the individual. Hellenistic is a little bit different. In Hellenistic astrology, it's really just this first house that talks about you. So having an eclipse like this in the first house can indicate a change, a transformation in self, in identity, in self-concept. We also use this house to talk about the health of the individual. So this, in addition to being a change or transformation in identity, this could also be related to health as well. Jupiter in the mix here as part of this stellium can add some of its significations, which include expanse, exaggeratedness, authority, also faith. I could see this indicating perhaps a change in faith coming up, leading to a rediscovered sense of self or a new sense of self. Now, we have the sun, because this is at the very last degree of Aries. The sun is very quickly going to move into the next house after this eclipse perfects. The sun will be moving into Taurus. And as soon as it does, it's going to exactly square Pluto in Aquarius up here. So when we have Pluto and Aquarius in the 11th house in the mix, and the sun moving into Taurus in the second, this could also indicate possibly a change in oneself that then goes on to have an impact on resources or assets. That's what the second house represents here. And having some sort of change involving allies, the ideals or goals that you keep, possibly some friction in there. So basically, to boil this down to a point, we have this sort of personal transformation, this internal growth, leading to a new sense of identity, a new sense of self. And this will lead to something that you can make work for you. For Aries risings, although be aware of how you then put that back into your allies, the people who supported you. This might cause some friction, so that's something to look at. This eclipse, as it happens, is also being squared by Mars in Cancer in the 4th for Aries rising. And so there may also be a little friction with family. This is possibly a reminder to examine your boundaries, especially as you sort of reinvestigate who you are, where you stand, what you believe in. Be clear about wanting to please others too much, perhaps coming into conflict with your own personal growth. All right, moving on to Taurus rising, putting that on the ascendant. That makes this eclipse take place in the 12th house. For Taurus rising, this is in your 12th house. And this house in Hellenistic astrology, it deals with hidden enemies, hidden struggles. It's a very psychologically oriented house. This is a house of shadow in a lot of ways. But because we have both of our luminaries here in this 12th house, this eclipse can be thought of as sort of highlighting the interplay between shadow and light, possibly bringing things to the surface for us to investigate, or asking us to confront our shadows. This is about looking into those dark places inside of us, bringing light and illumination to them. Not necessarily to battle our demons. This could also just be about understanding these darker aspects of ourselves and trying to be compassionate with them. Mars in Cancer is not always the wounded warrior. Sometimes Mars in Cancer is a different sort of strength, a more soft, yielding, bending, compassionate strength, as opposed to rigidity to the point of brittleness. So I'm seeing a lot of internal work, a lot of accountability here, self-accountability, looking for those things that we do that might be a little self-destructive in nature, perhaps, and being squared by Pluto in the 10th here, as the sun moves into the 1st. We have a period after we are doing the work with this shadow, with this darkness, moving into as a sort of a period of integration where we bring that into ourself, and we want to make that public. We want to bring it out into the world as well. Something that we need to show people. The 10th house is, in Hellenistic astrology, related to career on the one hand, but also to reputation, to who we are in public, who we are in relation to others. And so we have this internal work that we do. Our hidden enemies, whether that's hidden enemies in an external sort of literal sense or in a metaphorical sense, dealing with that, having some sort of a light bulb moment where this changes our view of ourself, and then bringing that out into the way that we act in the world for Taurus rising. All right, moving along, we have Gemini rising. This puts the eclipse taking place in your 11th house. So this is the house of support, the house of allies, networks, and negotiations. This is the house not necessarily of friends. That's something that we ascribe to the 11th in modern astrology quite a bit. And that's not exactly wrong in a Hellenistic perspective, but friends more in the sense of those who share your goals and your ideals and actively support you in pursuing them. More sort of a mutually beneficial friendship, as opposed to partners, as opposed to friends who are so close they're basically family, that sort of a thing. This is more a house of allies who help you to achieve and pursue your goals. So this is actually a fairly optimistic sign. This is a beneficial eclipse here for the Gemini risings. This could indicate prominence among your friend groups or among networks that you might happen to be in. This could indicate new alliances, new sources of support, a sort of authoritative position in organizations that you are a part of, that work toward common goals or ideals that you share. For example, I'm not talking about a corporation that you work in. I'm talking more, let's say you volunteer for a nonprofit, that sort of a thing. Something that might help your greater community achieve a goal that you really believe in. There could be a position of authority within that, or guiding support toward helping to make your goals a reality. Maybe there's a new connection that could really help further your aims. So yeah, overall for Gemini rising, this seems to be a pretty auspicious eclipse, so look forward to that. Cancer rising, moving right along. So this puts the eclipse in your 10th house, the house of career, of reputation, of work. This could be a new job. This could be changing careers. We could have maybe a raise or a promotion with both of the luminaries here, along with Jupiter. The stellium could be a very good sign regarding your reputation at work. So rising to a position of prominence, possibly. However, let's not forget that Aries is still ruled by Mars, and Mars is in its fall there in Cancer in the 1st. So this could be a change in jobs. This could be a change in jobs that's motivated, however, by poor barriers, by exhaustion, by feeling so tired, burned out, that you just need something to change. Something has to give. And so rather than continue to plug yourself away into something that doesn't leave you feeling fulfilled, there's sort of a breaking point there where enough is enough, and you decide that you're going to make a change for yourself. So maybe you're going to start a new venture that leads to some sort of sense of fulfillment, something that meshes more with your sense of purpose and drive. This could also just be a warning, a change in career or job, increased recognition or prominence in your particular field, increased responsibility. These all take a toll on us, as wonderful as they may be. Promotions are nice and everything, but we also have to keep in mind what other people's expectations of us are, and maybe occasionally reassert some boundaries to make sure that we don't end up feeling burned out. We only have so many resources. We can only be spread so thin. So maybe this is a reminder to take care of yourself regarding work-life balance. Leo rising. So for Leo rising, that puts this eclipse taking place in your 9th house. In Hellenistic astrology, this is the house of spirituality and belief, ideal, philosophy. This is also the house of travel, specifically far travel. I'm talking big trips, not necessarily just moving to the next town over. This is also a house that's associated with education, but more along the lines of college or a graduate degree, something like that, not just sort of a primary education. So having this eclipse in the 9th house, we could see a change in spirituality or a change in sort of your personal philosophy or belief system. I have definitely seen similar sort of transits translate into a person starting a grad program at university, or deciding to go back to college after having spent some time away from it. This is sort of the catalyst that brings someone to finish their degree, for example. We could also have, I don't know, just some big travel plans in the mix for this month or next. with Aries ruler Mars over here in the 12th, though, there are a few cautionary points that I might want to talk about here. If this is a change in spirituality, in religion, in belief, this might come about as a result of what's commonly called the dark night of the soul. This might arise as part of a low point, causing us to go back and reflect, and then coming through to this idea where we need to change ourselves spiritually or philosophically, where we need to re-examine our ideals, and perhaps try to look for a higher purpose. The 12th house is also representative of surrender, of loss of control, whether voluntary or involuntary. So if we are finding a new religion, maybe we are learning how to surrender and stop needing to be in control of everything all the time, which could, arguably be a positive life experience. Could also possibly indicate having a sort of loss of control that brings us to a come to Jesus moment, if you'll pardon the expression. Maybe recognizing some self-destructive behavior or some unwise behavior that isn't really doing us the good that we thought it was. Maybe the need to distract ourselves from truly examining our life and our place in it. So I suppose either way, this might be coming from a place of discomfort, but discomfort is not always a bad thing. It can lead to something quite uplifting and beautiful. It may be a sense of dissatisfaction, a sense of being constrained or limited, that inspires one to go on to finish a degree or to earn a degree for the first time, for example. So, however this manifests for you, Leo rising, even if it starts off in a slightly unpleasant point, if we just trust the process, we can end up in really enriching and nourishing places, spiritually speaking, philosophically speaking, educationally speaking. All right. Virgo rising. The eclipse is taking place in the 8th house. The 8th house in Hellenistic astrology is traditionally looked on as a less than pleasant one. This is the house of obligation. This is the house of debt. This also deals with sort of other people's resources or money. This can, though not necessarily, be related to passing, to death. This also talks about just sort of what we owe each other, sort of expectations of others, things of that nature. So given the fact that we have Jupiter as part of this stellium, and Jupiter is a planet of openness, of expanse, I might be inclined to look at this as sort of the dissolution of an obligation. Sort of the terms of a contract, figuratively speaking, have come up. The period of the contract is now over. So we have sort of this dissolution, this separation. This might involve starting new, cutting ties, working with a clean slate, and separation can be painful, but sometimes it's needed for growth. Sometimes we need to let go of someone or something, and I believe that this eclipse is creating a good opportunity to do that, to clear away that which no longer serves, to separate, and to focus more on forming ties, bonds, obligations, karmic contracts, if you will, with those who support us. This could also indicate, I want to emphasize, could indicate maybe passing family members, possibly some sort of legacy or inheritance that's received as a result of that. But that's far from the only interpretation. It's also far from the strongest interpretation that I would give for this particular eclipse. So don't hear House of Death and immediately panic. That's not what I'm trying to do here. This, I feel, is more along the lines of fulfilling the terms of some contract, separating from whomever or whatever we were tied to, and then starting anew with a clean slate. For Libra rising, we have our stellium in the 7th house, which is the house of relationships, partnerships, the spouse or significant other. So this could be a new relationship. This could be a relationship with someone, looking at the nature of the stellium involved here. Someone who is particularly prominent or who has some resources that you could use. You could be dating for prestige or for personal gain, more so than for how you feel regarding the person or persons involved. So that is definitely something to watch out for and to make sure to realistically and honestly examine. But overall, this doesn't appear to be a horribly negative eclipse for Libra rising. This new relationships are always fun and exciting, especially when they seem to be as big as this eclipse might indicate here. Either a relationship with a prominent person, or a relationship of prominence in your own life. Perhaps something that will be one of the big relationships that everybody has, a handful of, that they can look back on. Ones that were really significant, that stick out because they were meaningful. Of course, if you're in a relationship, then this could indicate that the spouse receives some sort of recognition, that the spouse is lifted up or exalted in some way. There is, however, a call to action here to examine how much you allow yourself to become entangled with others, we'll say. We have Mars here in the 10th. We also have, as the sun moves over into Taurus, it will be squaring Pluto in the 5th. So this might indicate a little bit of flirtation, a little bit of fun, that may or may not be a factor leading to a change in relationships. So be mindful. Be mindful. Okay. Scorpio rising. This is a volatile eclipse for you. Scorpio rising, this is taking place in your 6th house. The 6th house is the house of strife and struggle, possibly also associated with sickness and health concerns. So this I could see as signifying some sort of conflict. This could be a period of conflict, especially with Mars sitting there in the 9th house, as well as Jupiter involved in the stellium here. This could be a conflict involving your beliefs, fighting, really arguing, fighting, a lot of strife coming up because of your beliefs, standing up for what you believe in, maybe fighting on the behalf of others. This could be emotion, sort of emotional volatility driving, fueling this conflict. So perhaps a period of getting really, really emotionally overheated, having feelings sort of boil over to the point where you are in a more combative stance. This could be fighting for people who either don't or can't fight for themselves, being a voice for people who aren't heard, or who don't speak out for themselves, or can't. With the association with health and sickness in the 6th house, this could also just be burnout. This could be taking so much upon yourself that you run yourself into the ground. So that's another thing to look out for. Scorpio rising. This is a time, perhaps conflict is necessary. Sometimes it is. Sometimes we can't avoid it, and sometimes, especially if we are standing up for something that we truly believe in, sometimes we are going to experience friction if we have strong convictions and ideals. Sometimes conflict is necessary in order to move forward. So for the period of this eclipse, for the next month or so, be mindful of the reasoning behind any conflict that you may experience. Take an extra effort to step back and evaluate, examine, why am I experiencing, is this the result of perhaps some exaggerated emotional state that I'm in? Am I letting my emotions get the better of me? Or is this a necessary conflict? Just sort of evaluate that. For Sagittarius rising, we are moving into the 5th house with our eclipse here. So the 5th house is traditionally associated with creativity, with pleasure, fun, enjoyment, children. It's a positive house that is associated with basically leisure time. Having this eclipse here, especially with Jupiter in the mix, Sagittarius rising, we could be looking at children. This is a transit where, you usually have pregnancies, or if you already are in a relationship, if you already have children. This could be, with both the luminaries, Sun and Jupiter, in this eclipse, we could see our children being recognized, awarded, honored, sort of exalted. So maybe you have a kid who is really into, I don't know, sports at school, or some sort of extracurriculars. Maybe they win awards or something for that. We also have the possibility of creativity in a less literal sense, creativity, creation of children. Take that, make it more metaphorical, less sort of literal. We could be talking about creative endeavors, like, I don't know, hobbies, art, music, writing, those things that you do in your pastime, that just sort of feed the soul. This could indicate a period of particular inspiration, if you are creatively inclined. However, children or hobbies, whichever the case may be here, Mars is over here in the 8th, so be aware of any particular drain on your finances. Maybe you have a creative burst, you pick up a new hobby, you learn painting, or you decide that you want to learn the guitar. Well, then that involves buying supplies, maybe spending money on lessons. If your kid is awarded for something, recognized for something at school, maybe then you have some sort of financial obligation there. If a kid is on a sports team, then you have to pay for the kid to participate. Things like that. So be mindful of how these endeavors might impact your finances there. Capricorn rising. Now, I'm going to move us back a little. Okay. So for Capricorn rising, this is going to take place in your fourth house. That's the house of the hearth, home, family, things like that. So having an eclipse, especially a solar eclipse here, you could be moving to a new place. You could be selling property or buying property. This could indicate starting a family if you have not already done so, if that's something that you've been thinking about. This could indicate maybe renovations around the house or home. This could also possibly indicate maybe a conflict with the family or especially with the spouse. This could also, because of the nature of the Sun and Jupiter together there, could indicate coming into some sort of familial responsibility where you have more pressure put on you to act as a position of authority in the family, having to sort of step up and fulfill that role instead of just be the kid, free of responsibility, letting the parents deal with everything. This could also be again, possibly change in the family in a slightly less positive sense, maybe parting with family members, or possibly saying goodbye. That could also be the stepping up in family responsibility. That could be the trigger for that. Or, it could also just mean you're installing a pond in your backyard, or painting the walls a different color. I like to give a broad range of interpretations for things like this. Not everything is always the most extreme negative results. I want to be very clear about that. Okay, for Aquarius rising. Aquarius rising, this puts the eclipse in your third house. The third house in Hellenistic astrology is the house of siblings, first and foremost. Siblings, cousins. This is sort of very close family that's non-parental. This is also the house of the environment. This is the house of community. This is the house of sort of short, regular, reoccurring travel. So the commute to work every day, that sort of thing. The ninth house is for long distance travel, journeys. Third house is the regularly recurring travel that we engage in, and the local environment, sort of zoomed in, not big picture here. So we could see here maybe some sort of a dramatic change involving a relationship with our siblings, maybe some sibling rivalry or conflict there, possibly. We could also look at this as taking on a new role within our community, maybe speaking up, speaking your mind, becoming more outspoken in a community sense, leads to you taking maybe a leadership position in some sort of community endeavor. This could also be a change in your local environment, not necessarily moving home or purchasing a new house somewhere, but rather a change within the environment, within the locale itself. Maybe new buildings being put up in your neighborhood, something along those lines. Whatever the particular nature of this change or this new beginning, related to siblings or to community, to environment or locale. With the sun here very shortly going to move into Taurus in the 4th house, we can see that this will be having an impact, whatever this is, on the home as well. And there also may be a little bit of conflict involved in this, possibly. When this does move into the home, as the sun moves into the 4th house here, it's going to, like we've said earlier, it's going to move into a square with Pluto here in the 1st. So when this does move into the 4th house and activate the themes of home, of family, it's also going to activate some sort of change involving the self. With this particular transformative energy, with Pluto in the 1st, this could also indicate that, you have a sort of reinvention of the self that then leads you to re-examine your environments. Is this an environment that is really conducive to you and lending itself to your best interest? Having a sort of reevaluation there. And finally, final sign of the zodiac, Pisces. This eclipse is happening in the 2nd house for Pisces rising. So this is the house of resources. This is the house of money, of assets, of possessions, everything that you own that's not property, basically. So this is quite a fortunate transit for Pisces rising. This could indicate some sort of fresh, new beginning in terms of your finances, in terms of resources. You could be starting a new business venture. There could be a generally positive change in assets. We have Jupiter again. Jupiter's the planet of expanse. It's bringing sort of largesse to whatever it touches here. So that's a very positive thing to have in the 2nd house of finance and resources. However, one thing that I would like to draw attention to over here is the ruler of Aries is Mars over here in Cancer in the 5th. It's our fallen Mars. This is in the house of pleasure. So maybe we are starting a new business venture. Maybe we are having some sort of fortunate, beneficial change in our resources. But is it bringing us pleasure? Is it something that we find engaging, enjoyable, or is this something that is going to sort of suck the soul out of us, but it'll give us money? This is something to ask for Pisces rising. This, along with Pluto over here in the 12th, we should also be asking ourselves, if we do have this beneficial influx or infusion of resources, will this then lead us to unwise behavior, sort of unconscious self-undoing? Maybe we suddenly enjoy ourselves a little bit too much, and then we end up spending more than we have, So Pisces rising, that is what to look out for in this particular eclipse season for you. And there we have it. That is this solar eclipse through all 12 signs of the zodiac. Be sure to like, follow, and leave a comment telling me how this eclipse turned out for you.